Thank you.
Thank you. Nancy has been willing to step in today because my beloved and I were up all night with our wonderful puppy. He was very sick, so she sent me to bed at 1 o'clock and said I'll take the rest of the night. So she wasn't feeling too good at 6 this morning. I want to tell you how excited I am for this community. Way back when I started over 2 years ago, one of the things I said is I have no interest in being involved in a minister-centric community. All indicators of spiritual centers say that as spiritual centers move to community-centric, they're the ones that are successful. They're the ones that keep growing in this country. And I just want you all to know that this board has heard you in your surveys. If you look at what is happening since then, with the vote last week, it was well over 90% said yes, we need a parking lot and driveway. And now you're getting the opportunity to say how we fund it, and that information goes together, and the board will put together a formal proposal or a motion next week. And as that happens, we then go forward with an official meeting by our bylaws, which will be hopefully the 29th of this month after service. So you're seeing your impact very quickly, and that is very exciting to me, to watch all of that happen. And your involvement in each of these huge decisions, to me, it's the only way it should be. Someone said to me this week, well, how did you vote? And I said, it doesn't matter. They said, no. I said, I'm only one vote. They said, but a very important vote. And I said, no, it's not. It's 1 of 65. That's all. So that's what happens as the community grows and we make these decisions. Everyone gets a vote, and then we pull together no matter what the decision is, whether it was not the one I wanted or not, it's the one I support because the community has spoken. So I'm so excited to see that growing, and as I text Jeff this week, I said, Spirit is in this place in how we do business, which to me is really exciting. The other thing I'm excited about too is seeing what's happening on our property with the labyrinth and all the different beds. And yesterday I came to work early, as I do on Saturdays, and I ran into a mountain of mulch. Couldn't park. But I want a special thanks to Juliana, Janine, and for those who don't know who Mike is Janine's husband, who happens to be a master gardener instructor who instructs at places like Longwood Gardens, Hershey Gardens, places all over the country. And divine guidance is we had him here to help us. So I'm thrilled, and what I saw this morning was magical. So wonderful things happening all along. For those of you who are going to Harmony Walk today, it's today in Harrisburg, and you park at the mosque. It's on Division Street. The bus will then take you back to Goodwin Memorial Baptist, and then I think there's 3 or 4 stops on the way. Yes? The walk starts at 2. You want to be at the parking lot between 1 and 1:45, because the last bus will get you over to Goodwin Baptist and then walk back. Someone asked me how far is it. I did a GPS on it. From the 2 churches, about a half a mile. So, and I think there's 3 stops along the way. And if anyone's having difficulty walking, you just grab a bus and go on to the next stop. Okay? A way to be a doer of inclusivity. So we're into chapter 3, the art of thinking. I want you to think for a minute how much time you spent going to school and how much time they taught you how to think. And how'd they do? They really taught us well, right? This chapter, Eric Butterworth makes a shift. And I'm really excited about the shift to where we're going, because now we're about where the rubber meets the road, outside of the sanctuary, outside of class. It's about what happens during the week. And to me, that's where it matters. purpose. We can all come here and listen and be hearers of the word. And as that James verse says, we can deceive ourselves. And what I love about Eric Butterworth, and I keep saying that in every chapter that I go to deeper, that this is going to become a golden standard of people who are going to be studying for years and years to come. This is the tape series it came from, Practical Metaphysics. There's 2 volumes, 1 and 2. I have those, except it's very difficult to listen to anymore because I don't have a cassette tape player. But it'd be nice if they were on CD to be able to do that. This is driving this whole book, and it's absolutely has been what has driven my ministry. I don't know, it was 10 years ago, 11, 12 years ago, whenever, right about the time I went to Israel, I was studying Ralph Waldo Emerson, and this jumped out at me, and then it shows up again in this book. And to me, this is the crux of what's happening in the country and the world in consciousness. We're seeing spiritual evolution move from a God of tradition, dogma, duality, into letting go of the God of the intellect, the mental. And when we begin to do that, something happens. And it's the fire of the presence that we experience within us is what's making a change all over the globe. And I'm so excited that this was included in this book because to me, it's one of those sayings that can guide us through the rest of our journey. We talked 2 weeks about reframing, which again, I was so excited about to see it showing up because of my study in NLP. And the idea is to reframe words that have not meant so much, maybe, or they have been part of our childhood and the teaching before we were 7 years old, and we begin to look at them. And the 2 words that we worked on in chapter 1 and 2, the first was God, G-O-D. And we talk about how much baggage comes around that, especially if you had some real fundamental teaching like I did. And that God was still going to punish me when I did wrong. And it was, all of that is in our subconscious, and we have to let go of it to move into what is actually true for us. The second word that we reframed in this process was eachness. We used that instead of the word Christ because there's a lot of confusion around. You know, a lot of people are still walking around thinking Christ is the last name of Jesus. And it's not. And Christos, Christ, was here hundreds of years before Jesus ever showed up, and he never called himself that, ever. He said, I'm a teacher, and I can't do anything on my own. It's the God within me that he called that Father, and Paul, 90 years later, called it the Christ, does all the work through me. And somehow that has gotten so manipulated for so many hundreds of years, and it's in the process of cleaning it up. And I love what Eric has done here, is gave us new words that speak to what it's about. I mean, the word allness, you can't argue with that word. It's all. It's all of it. And the eachness is that each of us is that individual expression of the allness. Where does that come from? It comes from the master teacher. Jesus said, the kingdom of God is within you and me. It's not in this building. I said this the other week. I come here at 8 o'clock. God isn't here. He shows up as each one of you comes through the door. And I get to stand up here and say, wow, didn't God show up incredible today? Look at the diversity that shows up. Each and every one of us are uniquely created with the God within us. And that's the allness and the eachness and the reframe that we've been working with. Okay, so now we turn the corner. And this is where Eric gets up close in our face today. And I want you to know he gets up just as close in my face this week. Incidents do not cause thoughts. Do you believe that? It does not matter whose face and what political party shows up on the TV. And no matter what they say, it doesn't matter. It's an incident. Whatever you create in your mind around that is not caused by the incident. I had someone call me this week and say, can you pray for someone who has cancer? It isn't that phone call, the incident that created the thoughts within me. You know, anybody who's been around New Thought, Science of the Mind, and Unity, we've all heard stuff about thinking and thoughts over and over again. But if you listen carefully today, Eric Butterworth takes us to a new place. And it starts right here, with the belief system that incidents that occur in your life do not cause your thoughts. Now, I know that's a couple words in a sentence, but it has huge, huge meaning in our lives. And as we begin to take it and say, well, how can I take this? If I really begin to accept that and believe it, what do I do with that? How does it begin to change what I do? It's not what happens. It's the meaning you and I put to what happened. The example I gave on the TV, on the political, it doesn't matter which side of the politics you are, the other side's going to trigger you, right? We've been conditioned to do that. But it's not, it's a face and it's noise and it's words that show up on the TV. That incident does not create what's going on inside of you, in your mind and then in your body and your emotions. You and I choose to put the meaning there. You get that? This is really important. If you begin to go through your day knowing that incidents cannot create your thinking, you go to a level of freedom that you've never had. Now, I don't say it's easy to get there. It's not a hard thing to do. It's consistently staying there and saying, wait a minute, we're going to talk more about that, because that's what this chapter is all about, basically. You and I put the meaning to it by the thoughts that we have about it. It just shows up with no meaning. The meaning is what you and I begin to think about, which triggers then the emotions within us. That's how powerful we are. And we've given it up to the incidents that occur around us. Back to my buddy Waldo. He says, choose your perspective from the highest point of view you know. Choose from the highest point that you know. And we're going to tie this in a question at the end, which I think it's helping me through my days, my week. I hope that it will help you. The thoughts we choose determine the energy that's in motion within our bodies, called emotion. So the thought occurs, we put meaning to the incident, and then the thought's what creates the emotion that begins to move through the body. Sounds easy when I talk about it, but it happens in nanoseconds. But you and I have the time when we become aware of that space between the thought and the emotion that we can do something about it. And in there is the magic of the spiritual journey. Because in there is when you and I determine whether we're going to live in heaven or we're going to live in hell right now, right here on earth. That's the power we've been created on. Way back in Genesis, God said, I give you and me dominion over all things. We have not accepted that, and we have not believed it, and we have not implemented it and taken control of all those things. Which goes on to talk about animals and all that, which are nothing more than metaphysical symbols of thoughts. But you and I were created with the ability to take dominion. And this is what happens. We go up and down this emotional scale. Anybody do this week? Or just me? Yeah. And if we don't stay aware, and if we don't stay conscious, we can easily begin the downward spiral. Did you ever notice how much easier it is to go downhill than it is to go uphill? true physically, right? It's easier to run downhill than run uphill. But it's also true in our mind, our mental state. It's very much easier to get with a group of people who are going downhill and see how it begins to affect us so quickly. And so incredible when you get to come with like-minded people and feel the other. When everybody is lifting each other up in their thoughts and their emotions, and you leave saying, wow, that felt good. We experience this all week long. And the more we become conscious and the more we become aware of it, we begin to be able to take control. Remember, we are designed, created by the Almighty Allness to take dominion. That means total and absolute control over every thought. Let's go on. Buddha said this, you'll never be punished for your anger. You will be punished by your anger. And you can put anything in there you want. You can put depression, you can put fear, you can put anxiety. You will never be punished for your fear. You will be punished by your fear. Because you chose it. You stayed there. You let it become emotion, and it becomes energy. And what attracts what? Except in human relationships, we say opposites attract. But anywhere else in physics, it's the like attracts like. And so if I'm in an energy of fear, what am I going to bring to me but more fear? That's the punishment by, not for. I think it was Jeff that shared on Tuesday night that the word eachness, he changed to vortex. And I like that because if you begin to take allness to the next level in quantum physics, we're talking about the quantum field of unlimited potential, where science and spirituality are coming together. And instead of calling it eachness, we can call each of us or a vortex. That little cyclone of energy, 7.4 billion little vortexes within the allness, just on this planet. And every one of them has control to hold their vortex at the highest level. Guess what happens when that occurs? And it will. Maybe not in my lifetime, but in just my lifetime, I've seen a movement of consciousness all over the world. And when I look into the eyes of the kids that are coming in today, they remember who they are a lot better than we do. And that's that whole notion of a quantum vortex. That's who and what we are in the allness of the totality of it. So thought, Eric says, for the average person is a reflex process. Is that true for you and me? This is when you hear people today say, well, I was just triggered. Anybody get triggered this week? Yeah. That's what he's talking about here. We're unconsciously reflex process to an incident that showed up. And who do we blame? The incident, don't we? We never say, well, I reacted. It was a reflex process going on in my brain. No, we said, you cannot believe what that person said to me. And if you had been there, you would have felt the same way I do right now. Yeah? Triggered. A reflex to some incident. And what are we doing with the dominion piece? Out the window. We're running old patterns. We've been doing this since we were 7 years old. Don't you think enough already? I do. Something happens, we react, we become worried, we become anxious, we become fearful, we become angry. Pattern after pattern after pattern just continues to repeat for as many years as you've been here. And it will stay that way to the day you leave this planet unless you choose to change something. And that's what we're talking about here today. So what did the master teacher say about this? Do not judge according to appearances. An incident is an appearance. He says don't judge it. Judge how? Right thinking. Right? This is where choice comes in. We were designed with it. We're created with it. We have the ability to take dominion over every thought we have. But we have to first believe it's possible for us. Can't say, well, it's only possible for them. No, it has to be for you and I. We have to make that decision that this is possible. And then we begin to implement the changes to get there. Do not judge by appearances. A rich heart may be under a poor coat. You and I have all had those experiences where whatever triggered a judgment of appearance. And as we get to know the person, right, it's like, wow, it's a really good person. I missed all that with all my habitual patterns that may be playing through. Contrary to our past behavior, experiences do not cause thoughts. Never. Never. They just happen. They're appearances. What happens in your mind happens as a result of your attitude, your feelings, and your habit patterns. Your mind is your domain. And it is the only place you get to take dominion. The only place. You are the master of your destiny. You are the captain of your soul in your mind. And when these incidents comes up, we get to practice. Or we get to stay in unconscious habitual patterns. And we get triggered, react, triggered, react, triggered, react. And it continues on and on forever. You and I think what we want to think. By going to default mode and staying in unconscious habitual patterns is a decision, a choice, to think that. If something has been creating fear for you your whole life, stop it already. Change what you're thinking. Take ownership to the thought. And you're going to begin to change the patterns. You're going to begin to change what manifests. But if you let the same patterns run and run, you are not consciously making a choice. We are upset because we're upsettable. We choose to be upset. We choose to let the incident trigger us. We choose to continue to be upset. And a lot of people are still upset about what they were upset when they were the age of the syndrome. Ever since 7 years old, the same things have been upsetting us. Pattern after pattern. So this is a key question from Eric in this chapter. Ask yourself this. Why do I allow people, experiences, or things to determine how I'm going to think, feel, or act? And if you don't ask yourself this question, and we begin to really contemplate why, you won't change. So don't miss this question in this chapter. And when you feel yourself get triggered this week, come back to this question, why? Don't judge yourself, don't condemn yourself, simply say, or, you ever hear yourself saying this? Well, here I go again. No, ask a new question. Why am I doing that? Why am I giving my power to that person, to that thing, to that image on a TV screen? Why? And listen. The answer you're going to hear, and it's always the same. So no matter what happens externally of you and I, we always have a choice. Unless we choose not to have one, which is another choice. Now, I've had people say to me, well, Reverend Dan, you don't understand. My mind just goes whirly-bird like on a hamster wheel. No, it doesn't. You trained it to do that. Stop it. Breathe. Relax. We have the tools. But you have to implement them. You got to do the process. You got to do the work to begin to put a change to that. Otherwise, you've made a choice to continue to run the way it's always been. Move from a reactive thinker to a creative thinker. I love this because we all want to be creative, do we not? Not just the musicians and artists. This is an inborn in our soul need to be creative. And I'm not much of a drawer and I can only play CDs, but I can tell you what, I can get creative with my mind. And I can make a different choice than running the same patterns that have been placed in there since I was 7. And so can you. Become a creative thinker. Breaking news. Learn to disassociate. For those of you reading in the book, this is when he went into the hotel. If you remember the front boy at the desk. And the one was, oh, everything that was going wrong in the world was to hell in a handbasket, and all the people here were miserable. And he went to the other one and he said, how's your day going? He goes, well, people have problems, but I'm having a great day. Disassociate with the appearances. Disassociate with the incidents that are happening around you. Whether it's in your personal life with family, friends, work, church, doesn't matter. Disassociate. The world has problems, not you have it. Don't own it. As soon as you own it, it's yours. You made a decision, a choice to have a problem. Guess what energy your vortex is going to? The low problem area. And guess what will come? Life attracts more problems. This is the other one. Don't own negative feelings. It feels hopeless. It feels like anger. It feels like sadness. It feels like anxiety. Not, I'm anxious. Get the difference? Disassociate. Give yourself some space. And in that space of time, you can make another choice. So the mind of God, you and I are thinking centers within the one mind. Omniscient means one wisdom, one mind. You and I are individual minds within the all one mind. But we get the choice, by given to us by design, to take that incredible allness and choose how we want to think. And the energy and the power flows through us based on the choice or no choice, which is a choice. Unconscious habit, patterns, just keep running. Now I want you to get this one. If you don't get anything else today, you are not what you think. You are thinking what you think. You are not what you think. You are thinking what you think. The key here is, who is the you? Are you the you thinking? Are you the you behind all of this process? Remember, you're a spiritual being having a physical experience. We get tied into our thoughts, do we not? And boy, will we defend them. Right? You have an opinion. Someone challenges your opinion. Woo! We will get fired up with the energy to defend that thought. Who's doing the thinking? It's not you. We're in eachness of the allness. Here's another key. And I give this even more power, and I'll tell you just briefly, I'm not going to spend a lot of time on it. Metaphysical thinking is not programming the mind with positives. My personal belief and my study of what's happened to New Thought over the last 120 years is we stayed locked here. We were trying to program our minds with denials and affirmations over and over again. And we got locked there and we didn't continue to grow. And I believe we can look around and we can see science of the mind churches shutting down left and right, so much so that their ministers have to become unity ministers. It's true. Unities are closing down for the same reason. We've got locked in made a dogma of this that was true 100 years ago and is no longer true. And Charles warned us about this. He said, I will change my mind based upon the new revelation that God is giving me, Spirit is giving me, that allness is giving me. And we've gotten locked into repeating affirmations over and over again. And what Eric is saying here in this, don't stop there. That's a step. But the next step is this, waking up your mind to the deep, underlying positive, which is already there as the truth of who you are. You cannot be in eachness of the allness or the Christ of the God within you and not have anything in there but positive, healthy ideas. And we've been spending all this time trying to beat on our minds with more affirmation, more affirmation. He's saying, stop it. Awaken to who you are. And that truth comes out from within. This is paramountly important in this whole teaching of this book. It makes a big, big shift in one little sentence, a paragraph. Where does it come from? Out of Romans, do not be conformed to the world's thinking, but be transformed by going deeper within to the truth of who you are. Same thing that Eric's saying here. I really like this because I'm an underliner. Anybody who's ever looked at my books know that it's underlined. And he said, when you underline, it's important to you, but do not say this to yourself, and I've said this to myself a gazillion times. Instead of saying, I want to remember this and get it into my mind, anybody else ever say that when you read something? I got to get this one. Get it deep in my mind. He said, no, don't do that. Remember that you are wakening up to the consciousness of who your true being is, and all you have to do is say yes. Feels a whole lot better to me. So now every time I'm going to underline, I'm going, yes. And it's changed everything, because I underline almost every other sentence. But what's happening now, I'm saying a lot of yeses, and I'm saying yes to life. I'm saying yes to the truth of who I am, as the eachness of the allness. It's already there. I don't have to go find it. I don't have to run around over the world and find the next guru. I got to get quiet, get silent, go inside, awaken the truth of who you are. He says this, no more filling up, but waking up. No more filling up. I've said affirmations till I'm full. I don't want any more affirmations. I want to wake up to who I really am. And to me, that's the most exciting piece of this book so far. We're getting to know who and what we are and how we were created, and that we were given this, created to have dominion over all of it. It's already there. I just got to wake up. He added to our doublethink. When I got the whole double thing, I never knew Eric talked about this. I love this. Because he's saying we have to think horizontally. And that's dealing with information, and it's dealing with things and the stuff around us in our lives. And when we learn to say, okay, that's a fact, but what's truth? Now we're beginning to go vertical. Getting back inside where it all already is. Be still and know that I am God. And this deals with inspiration and with things as you are. Not letting the incidents out there create the thoughts and the emotions. You simply take a deep breath, go inside, and go up and down. Go this way. Master teacher said this, be of good cheer, I have overcome this world. Who's the I here? It's the I of the I am within you and me. It's already within us. And this can be true for us if we learn the process to go from horizontal thinking to vertical. How many of you have ever said this as winter comes? Oh no, I must be catching a cold as you sneeze. I hear it all the time. Eric said, no. Say, oh yes, I've caught a cleansing. Isn't that what a sneeze is, actually? It's cleaning out. It's a release. Do not let the incidents drive your thoughts. You drive it. Discipline determines your and my level of success. You and I are all disciplined. People say to me, you don't understand, I'm not disciplined. Yes, you are. We all do what we want to do. That's discipline. You just got to change what you want to do. So, okay, I want to do that now? Okay, then I'll go do it. But when we say we're not disciplined, we're not disciplined because we don't really want to do it. Is that not true? You will do what you want to do. And you will find the money and you'll find the time. Right? And you say, well, you don't understand. I'm not quite. Yes, you are too. You just want to change your focus to go for what you want to change to go to a new level. All right, so Eric says this, get this deeply within your being. I am not what I think, I'm thinking what I think. He says it, repeat this, and repeat it, and repeat it until you get it. This is the most important piece of the chapter, in my opinion. And when you get the aha that comes with this, it allows you to go to a new place and take control, that incidents do not control my thinking. And when I look around, I'm seeing all these foreheads are going like this. You'd be amazed what I can see. It's all over your face. The I that thinks has a capacity to think what it wants to think, and the I decide to think positively and creatively. I can do so. You've got to get the secret to this is find out who the I is within you. Where is it? What is it? And that's where the control comes in taking dominion of what we just talked about in the last slide. Just say no to negative thoughts. He says just stop them. You know, he gives the example, even the master teacher was tempted in the desert. And they used the word Satan in there to, you know, get the red tail and the fork and all that good stuff. But he too had negative thoughts. And what he was saying no to was his own mortal human ego. So get behind me, stop. And what Eric's saying here is it works. And I'm telling you, it does work. No, delete. But you have to have a way to start taking control, or otherwise you're going to keep running the patterns that you've been running forever. Interject into the pattern. No, I'm not going there anymore. And then go to where you want to go by remembering who and what you truly are. You can be as happy as you make up your mind to be. That was an Abe Lincoln quote. You can be as successful as you let yourself be. And you can be as healthy as you expect yourself to be. You're in control. Take it. You're the master of your destiny, the captain of your soul. Don't give it up this week. Don't give it up to some person who shows up with whatever's going on in their lives. Say no. Not to them, to yourself. You don't have to get into an argument. You simply say no. I don't believe where they are. I don't believe what they're going through. This is not true for me. And then state what is. Now this is Robert Frost, who was one of those optimistic poets, right? And when was asked, how does he stay optimistic? I offer this to you. It doesn't work for me. I've tried it. If you ask Jacqueline, I'm like, why make up the bed? I'm going to sleep in it tonight. She's going to have it perfect. And what Robert Frost is saying, when you make up the bed and get all the wrinkles out, get the wrinkles out of your mind. Get rid of the negatives. He uses that as a physical trigger. I'm going to share with you what I've used. For those of you who would practice what we did last week, of going to the mirror and getting the feedback, when you look deep into your own soul and you ask the question, who do I say I am? My answer is, I'm the Christ of the living God. I'm the eachness of the allness. My question for myself is not getting wrinkles out of my bed. My question during the week is when thoughts come up, I ask myself, is that a thought of the Christ? Is that a thought the eachness of the allness would have? And if the answer is yes, I'm going to go with it. If the answer is no, it's time for me to take a minute and get centered and begin to ask, then how would I change that? I'll say no to that, but what am I going to put in place? And as you can see, that has nothing to do with affirmations. That has getting centered in who you are. You are the divine within you. As Jesus said, it is written in Psalms, you are God, little g. But we can only be that when we take dominion. And we take control of our minds and say no to the negatives and move to what we really want. Then our lives begin to change. And I believe this is the most paramount teaching. If you want to move from heaven and hell on earth, this is how it's done. He gives us the how-to here. And each day you get a little bit better at it, you get a little bit better at it, a little bit better. And this habit begins to replace the ones that were placed in you when you were by the time you were 7 years old. We have control of that. And it begins right here. I live in the divine mind, in the allness of the infinite mind. Let's go to silence, please. And again, I'm going to use his meditation at the end. So just take a couple deep breaths, please. Now let's take a moment to be still and remind ourselves that we live in the medium of infinite divine mind. We live in the medium of the infinite divine mind. The same intelligence that creates the universe is the intelligence that is the essence within every thought of your mind. Every thought of your mind is an expression of infinite intelligence, even the negative thoughts. We realize that thoughts are forced into the molds of human consciousness according to our very own will or according to our very own interest. We commit ourselves to thinking the kind of thoughts that we want to think, the kinds of thoughts that we want to see manifest in our lives, knowing that thoughts produce our conditions. We affirm for ourselves, I am not what I think, but I'm thinking what I think. And the self of me that thinks has the capacity to think positively and creatively. I decide right now that during the week to come, I'm going to think the kinds of thoughts I want to see manifest in my life. I'm not going to react to conditions. I'm going to creatively express the positive power of infinite divine mind. I'm not going to simply be a horizontal thinker, responding and reacting to all the things that are happening in the world. I am going to be a vertical thinker. And I'm going to know that even though it would appear there are lots of problems out there, I don't have these problems. People have problems. The world has problems. I have the capacity to deal with these problems in a positive, creative way. Let's make a commitment that this week we're going to discipline ourselves to keep ourselves in constant control of our minds. We're not going to be disturbed or upset if a negative thought flits into our mind because we're thinkers and thought habits are deep-seated. We're going to know that regardless of the negative thought that comes into our minds, we cannot identify with them. Instead of saying, just like me, or that's the way I am, or there's no hope for me, we can say, I have the power and capacity to rise above this. And I say to conditions completely not identifying with them, get behind me. I say no. And then I begin to say yes to a lot of wonderful things, positive, creative things. Things that I read, things that I see, things that are beautiful around me. I say yes to them. And I say no to the things that I don't want to be part of my life. And so it is.